Scrupulous. I can't say the word anymore. Scrupulous. Knit me together. Hello everyone, welcome to episode 4 of Prayer 101 with me. I've been asked to do a couple of workshops on prayer over the last 12 months, so praying with scripture, imaginative prayer, and I often get asked, how do I know if it's God speaking? Like, how do I know it's Him and I'm not just thinking random thoughts? So today I'm just going to share some wisdom that I learned in terms of my prayer life and how to discern God speaking to me and His voice and how I hear Him and how He speaks to me. My spiritual director and her community often share that there's 4 voices in prayer, which is handy because it's episode 4. Anyway, so there's 4 voices: God's voice, your voice, the world's voice, and the enemy's voice. It's a big question to discern what God is saying to us and what He's asking of us and what He's speaking into our hearts. So I think this is a really important thing to reflect on and deepen on and come to understand about your personal and unique relationship with God, because He speaks to us in different ways. When you're starting to have this dialogue with God and trying to listen out for His voice, it's kind of like working on a muscle in a gym, right? Like if you're working on your arms or if it's leg day, you keep training that specific area. So likewise, we're training the specific part of our relationship and of our faith, which is vital as Christian people to know and to be able to discern. And with that too, the more you do it, the more you work it out in terms of your dialogue, the stronger you become, the stronger your faith becomes in who it is that you're having this dialogue with. And the more too that you trust whose voice it is. So the first 2 I mentioned were kind of self-explanatory, I would imagine, God's voice and your voice. And I think it's hard sometimes in this journey of prayer, because often I know even for me, sometimes I just thought, I think I was just thinking that. I think, those are just my desires. I don't know if they're from God. And I remember one of my team brothers, when I was on net, I remember asking him, how do you know it's God speaking to you? And he said, I know for sure that it's Him when it's something that challenges me or something that I don't expect or something that I naturally wouldn't think. And of course, we're creatures of habit and comfort, and we will, for the most part, tend towards the more comfortable or the easier or the most convenient thing. So that's kind of a tip too in terms of trying to discern if it is you or God speaking. But on the other hand, it's important to remember that desires and thoughts that are placed on our hearts and our mind and our spirit, they come from God too. And often I think that just comes with discerning what is the better choice. Often the 2 paths presented to us, they can be both good things in and of themselves, but again, it's creating that space and that room and that silence in your life to be able to hear and let God speak into what is the better good. So that's God's voice, your voice, and the 3rd voice is the world's voice, and this voice is the voice of kind of society and the world and kind of the flesh that we have to learn to accept and understand that we are a part of, that is a part of us. And these are things that the world will tell us is the right thing, what the world's idea of relationships are, what the world's idea of life and love are. Sometimes they don't always collide with what God's desire and God's plan and purpose is for us and for those around us and for the world. And the 4th voice is the enemy's voice. This is the one that we need to be really mindful of, because again, like I mentioned earlier, he will present us something good. In and of itself, it is a good thing. It's not a bad thing, but he often coats it in sugar, coats it in bells and whistles, and makes it appear to be a really delightful good. Remember, he is cunning like a snake, and he is strategic, and he will get in there, I probably mentioned this before, but we're holistic beings, so God will use our minds, our hearts, our spirit, our senses that He has given us to be able to see and hear and feel Him in everything. One thing to be mindful of, to look out for in ourselves, are scruples. So someone who is scrupulous is often excessively anxious about his sinfulness, so he might confuse venial sins for mortal sin. He might find it difficult to make decisions because he doesn't want to displease God, and he doesn't want to do something that is not in accordance with God's laws and commandments. And this is something to be mindful of in terms of discerning whose voice it is that you're hearing, because like I mentioned, the enemy will use good things to distract us away from really what God is calling us to. So he might present us with something that is good, like for example, if I want to go and sit down in prayer in the morning, but I get distracted by a phone call or a text message or a housemate who is struggling with something and just needs someone to talk to. It's kind of one of those things you need to sit back and just discern for a moment what is the better thing. So is God inviting you right now to exercise charity and love and compassion and be present and be available for this person in your life? Or is the enemy trying to distract you from prayer in this moment? So it's one of those things that they're both good things, but it requires some discernment in terms of, all right, what is the better thing? What is the better good in this situation right now? So obviously I can't give you a specific what is right or wrong. It could be different in everyone's particular situation, or it could be both. So again, that's why it's important to understand whose voice it is that is speaking you and calling you, and what it is in this moment that God is asking of you. And again, this takes time and this takes practice, but it is such a vital thing in the Christian life to know, because how God speaks to me is going to be very different to how God speaks to you. God speaks to me in a variety of different ways. Sometimes he just gives me an image. It might take me some time, or that whole prayer time, to kind of discern and understand and let him reveal to me what he was trying to say through that image. Sometimes he gives me just a really deep peace and knowing about something. He won't necessarily speak words. I won't necessarily sense him speaking specific words, often in terms of discernment and where he's leading me to and what my mission is, either in the near future or further along the path. He just gives me this knowing, and it's not always peaceful in terms of something I particularly desire, but I know it could be one of those pick up my cross and bear it and follow him. And sometimes he speaks very clearly to me and very bluntly, tenderly, but very distinctly to me, especially in times where I am perhaps not feeling peaceful or not feeling loved and nurtured in a particular situation. He'll speak very clear truths into my life, which is great. And this has taken me 10 years to understand that about my relationship with God. So if that's not where you feel you're at with your relationship with God in terms of hearing what he's asking of you or how he is speaking, please don't fret and don't compare it. Comparison is the thief of joy. So yeah, take that time to work on and understand your relationship with God and unpack how it is that he speaks, so you can be a better disciple and apostle and help create disciples and apostles for the kingdom too. So that's it from me. Keep chasing after Jesus, pray wholeheartedly. See you in the next one. Peace. Knit me together, you searched me and you know me. Oh. So yellow.